Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode, Nurse Kim Carter joins us again. She has a particular website here that she wants to let people know about. It is ConsciousHealthSolutionsLLC.com. I will link it in the description below. And it says the following here: at Conscious Health Solutions in Dayton, Ohio, we offer functional medicine, trauma-informed health coaching, and root cause healing for clients facing thyroid dysfunction, PCOS, chronic fatigue, digestive issues, anxiety, depression, and CPTSD. We proudly serve clients across Nurse Licensure Compact NLC states, including Florida, Texas, North Carolina, Georgia, and over 35 others. This is a space created for healing that goes deeper than the physical, a journey of awareness, empowerment, and alignment with your true self. Again, she has modules and videos. Her contact information is there, email, phone number, the whole thing. This is excellent stuff. Again, this is the alternative medicine that our society so desperately needs, so that individuals, again, can start to look into a mirror, essentially, but also not just look within themselves, but of course look around at their surroundings and understand that their surroundings are all manufactured and not for a good reason, clearly. So we talk about that right off the top. We also talk about, again, what she is seeing among her patients, specifically, again, about 2 weeks out of every month, and she goes through that, and it's, again, unfortunately typical, as you might expect. And she gives an update on her ongoing lawsuit with Select Medical, which was her former employer, where very famously she recorded herself being terminated from that particular group, but also, again, recorded herself confronting them about what they were doing regarding the mask wearing and the shot taking, and how she, of course, was not going to comply. Because, of course, she didn't want to kill herself, but she also didn't want to kill her fellow co-workers, let alone the patients themselves. So again, I will link the description below here in the actual website. Her website, again, is ConsciousHealthSolutionsLLC.com. Give this conversation a listen, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for listening as always, and I'll catch you on Monday. Peace.
Well, so first we should probably warn your listeners, or at least give them a little bit of a heads up, because this is kind of going to go a little deep, right? Because, we're talking about the geopolitical things that are going on in our world. It's insanity everywhere, right? But today we're going to kind of touch on something that connects all of those dots together. And so it's going to feel a little bit like a roller coaster, but it's going to connect science and psychology, spirituality, and the global landscape all together. So anyway, I was scrolling through TikTok yesterday, and I saw this podcast guy on there talking about how when we go out into society, right, and I go to introduce myself to somebody else, I'm not just introducing one of me, I'm introducing 7 of me, right? And the other person also has 7 of him that is being introduced. So there's actually 14 different levels of consciousness that are coming into that particular meeting, right? So I have the version of me that I think I am right now, the best person that I'm going to be putting forth into my daily walk, right? But then there's the past version of me. There's the version of me that I'm trying to walk into. And then there's the version of me that other people perceive me as. And then there's the version of me that they want me to be, right?
Right.
So all of those versions exist inside of each person every single day, right? So if it's true for me, it's true for you, it's true for everybody. But then our own mind gaslights us and manipulates us all in the middle of that. And it tells us, if you were to go and do a speech, right? And you get up on stage and you've got all of these people looking at you, you immediately, the first thing that goes through your mind is, oh my God, they're judging me. I look stupid. My hair's out of place. My outfit looks dumb. I've got a stain here. They're going to see, you see what I mean? We believe that everything that's happening out there is happening to us. So we all have some level of narcissism that exists inside of us because we make everything about us. Now, what's interesting about that is your level of awareness is going to determine how deep that narcissism actually goes. So when we're connecting that to the bigger picture, We are looking at the fact that we are in this self-referential loop that becomes more awake, and then it becomes quieter as we become aware of what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So here's how it connects to the bigger picture, though. So right now, you and I both know that everything that's happening geopolitically is a spiritual war, right? We've been in this spiritual war for the collective consciousness, and it's being controlled and run by fear, right? So every single collapsing system, every single media narrative, and every single new crisis is about one thing. It's about controlling humanity through the perception of fear. And since society is managed on this feedback loop of distraction and dependency, the media floods the nervous system constantly with crisis after crisis. Technology keeps our attention fragmented. Our food and pharmaceuticals keep our chemistry dull, and then our education turns us into obedient slaves instead of learning through curiosity. And so it all works together to keep the average person exhausted and overstimulated to the point where they don't even think to question the narrative. They just become NPCs following along with the daily program, and they're not even aware of it. But fear hijacks their nervous system. And then when their nervous system goes into survival mode, people literally stop thinking critically and they start surrendering their sovereignty just to feel safe. And we all experienced that back in 2020. So, but the truth is that humanity as a whole has been living in survival mode for decades because most people are just doing what they have to do to get through the day to survive, right? I mean, we're just literally trying to exist in a world where we have to pay to exist. Everything that we do requires us to pay some form of monetary exchange, and our money only means something because we give it value. Really, energy is the currency, right? So it's where our attention goes is where energy flows, and that becomes the currency that we are exchanging in this reality. So, but because we've become so overstimulated, the majority of the population has been numbing themselves with medications, drugs, alcohol, anything that they can do because the collective trauma runs so deep. But the darkness that we've all been seeing out in the whole field of the landscape is really just the collective shadow of humanity being exposed to the light for the first time, right? Everything that has always been done in darkness is going to come to the light because it's law. It has to. Nothing can be contained forever. So that's pretty much why I built my FEAR program. And it's an acronym, stands for Face Everything and Rise. And it's not just a mindset course, it's like a full deprogramming system designed to help people remember who they are beneath all of the conditioning. So, in the first module, I talk about how we live inside of it's kind of like a shift in perspective where we are looking at the life that we are living as a game, as an advanced AI simulated game that has immersive technology to the point where you believe that you are this character that is existing inside of this avatar body. And the world itself, the earth, is the containment zone. And that containment zone has 7 laws that rule its entire nature. Whether you believe in them or not, they exist and they run everything. Your avatar is your like advanced game simulator controller. So when you think a thought or you feel an emotion and the two of them are combined, your avatar moves. So if you think move left, your avatar moves left. If you think move right, your avatar moves right. So if you can shift your perspective into recognizing that you are not the avatar, you are the player inside of this immersive AI simulated game, and that your avatar has been programmed by the containment zone, specifically from societal conditioning and all of the programs that you receive from your parents, from your teachers, from your authority figures, and all of society, that program is the one that is dictating and controlling the way in which your avatar experiences this reality. And it also controls the different 7 versions of you that interact with other avatars in this realm. Now, those laws are about like polarity, vibration, rhythm, correspondence. And so if those same laws exist inside of the containment zone and you don't know anything about them, then you're literally playing the game blind. You have no idea how you're operating inside of this. And it's always been my understanding, well, my clarity has always come from understanding the deeper questions that was pretty much drilled out of all of our education, really the curiosity part behind our education. My brain never stopped seeking for the answers to the questions of why things are the way that they are. And because trauma is so heavily prevalent in our society, in the conditioned program that exists inside of the containment zone, everything inside of there has to be based on fear, because fear is the opposite, the direct opposing opposite of love. So that means then that there's an underlying directive of unconditional love inside of the containment zone itself. And unconditional love is always about returning to self and returning to safety. But if you don't know that that self inside of you of unconditional love exists as the player, then the containment zone's fear programming and fear-based expressions of behavior are going to be what run you throughout your entire life and program. Does all of that make sense?
It does. I get it. And,
okay,
and let me give some examples. And again, these are these are current examples, and I'm certain we're basically on the same wavelength. And of course, different, I would say, I don't know, varying levels of seriousness, I suppose, but they're all bad. Is you always end up seeing conflict in areas where, on that spectrum of consciousness, you have individuals who are dead asleep, and then you have individuals on the other end who are, like you said, yourself, awake and constantly trying to be awake. And again, and figure out more as time goes on. Now, there's perils to both, of course, is that an individual can be so far in the awake section, so they believe, that they end up believing things that are far-fetched and actually not true. I mean, they'll believe all kinds of things. On the other end, however, you have individuals who are so dead asleep that it doesn't matter what a person tells them. They still believe that they are right, even though they are 100% wrong.
Correct. And that's where you can put all the research, all the published peer-reviewed articles and videos and documentaries in front of them, and they can't see or hear anything.
Correct. And school boards, for example, are a perfect example of where you can see that. The vast majority of individuals who sit on school boards or even city councils or whatever it is, these individuals, by and large, are dead asleep. You do have the occasional person who is more on the awakening side, but they're not on the far end of that spectrum of the awakened, so to speak, which is why, again, you always see the conflict. Same thing with the public interacting with those individuals who exist on those committees and those boards, because the simple fact that they sit on those committees, they think to themselves that they are, by default, more intelligent than the ones who are not on those committees.
Right. So I'm going to break this down for you in game language, right? Okay. So we know there's NPCs and there's awake people. Well, the NPCs are literally a part of the program of the containment zone itself. They are specifically placed and designed to activate your own egoic triggers. Those triggers are designed specifically to make you go in order to find your own egoic story and your own patterns of behavior that you are refusing to acknowledge or to accept or to dismantle the lie that the ego created in order to make you be, act, or do in a certain way. So when the NPCs are placed in front of us and we have this deeply rooted belief system, right? Now let's discern from belief system versus truth. What's the difference between the two? What's a belief versus truth?
Well, a belief isn't the truth at all. It doesn't have to be, right?
Right. It can be shattered because there can always be an opposing perception that would make you challenge that. But truth is known inherently in your core, right? So that's where discernment comes in. That's where a lot of people can believe things that others can't because they have a different level of discernment, right? But when you are in a school board meeting, you have a belief system that they have a certain role to play in your child's life when it comes to their education, because we agree to that particular part of the sub game inside of the big game of the game of life. That's just a small segment of the character that you chose to play, experiencing that part of your reality inside of the containment zones game. Make sense?
Yep, I got it.
So the NPCs that are a part of the program, they all have a certain script that they follow. They cannot veer off of that script. So whenever you challenge the program's operating system, the NPC is only going to respond with that script, and they will all come against you. That's the Agent Smith of the movie The Matrix, right? They all turn against you because they are the NPCs of the program, designed to specifically make you think that your programming is false, because everything inside of the containment zone exists on a paradox. What's true is really a lie, and what's lie is really true. Okay, so that's how our government systems operate. They operate with projection, and they operate in distortion in order to show us collectively that this is not real. And they get more blatantly obvious in the more distorted they become, right? Because, I mean, how often have we been laughing our ass off at the memes and shit coming out from our government and everything that they've been doing over the last 5 years?
Right.
The more ridiculous it becomes, the more aware we can see that it's not really happening. It's just all a part of the script of the game that we're all experiencing. And as our awareness begins to increase, because we are using the triggers that are inside of the containment zone program from these NPCs to learn about us, we can then decipher and figure out, okay, where has fear controlled me? Where have I allowed my belief systems to be distorted because of fear in my training as a child, right? So we have all been programmed from this place from childhood to react in a certain way to fear. And that fear drives our operating system in the avatar so that it interacts directly with the realm of the containment zone. So when somebody tries to veer outside of the script of the NPC and it triggers you, a life-giving spirit, one that actually has awareness and consciousness inhabiting you, that's your key to go inside of yourself, inside of your own belief systems, to identify what story you're telling yourself. And that's what helps to actually increase your level of discernment, because all of the answers that you will ever need are inside of you.
Right. Yeah, there's no reason to explain yourself to people, because
Right.
explaining yourself to, again, an individual, as horrible as it sounds, but a lesser person, an individual who is not nearly as conscious as you are about the world that we live in, is next to impossible.
Right.
Certainly not without an emotional reaction from them or the awake person. And as, again, you're describing this, and I know that this is coming from your subconscious also, is the fact that everything that you're describing describes your tape recorded audio interaction with the select medical people in that office.
Right. Exactly. They all had the same script.
Of course.
It was,
One after
this
the
is our
other, too.
policy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were all programmed NPCs designed to get me, my avatar, to recognize when I was choosing comfort over truth. If I would not have stood up to them, if I would have backed down, then I would have existed in a state of comfort, right? Ignoring the true sovereignty of the nature of my being. And I would have self-abandoned, self-neglected, and self-rejected myself all over again, knowing that I was bending my will to somebody else because it's to, quote unquote, keep me and others safe. They are not my responsibility. Right?
Right. Yeah.
And that kind of a thing, that kind of a mask, is not going to keep other people safe anyway. That was the whole point of the whole thing. You can't gaslight me and manipulate me into believing that something is true when I know this is false information.
And their definition of safe and comfortable is the exact opposite.
Correct.
Yeah.
And again, it's because of the paradox that exists inside of the realm. Anytime The program is attempting to tell you what you need to do, have to do. You should always, always question it, because we never need to do or have to do anything unless we want to.
Correct.
So
Yep.
when my kids were little, and specifically my oldest son, we'll touch on the whole vaccine thing. I was on the bandwagon before it became a bandwagon. Why? Because I did my own research. I looked into it because I wanted to know what was going to be in the best interest of my son. This tiny human that came from my body that I am responsible for. And I hold that responsibility very deeply, right? That is my creation that came from me. I'm responsible for him. So I want to make sure that if I'm going to inject something into him, it damn well better be safe. And the information that I was finding 27 years ago now indicated to me that I had a 50-50 shot. I could either trust that my son's body was divinely designed to ward off any disease, ailment, or whatever, and that if he was exposed to some such disease, his body was capable of fighting it off. Or I could trust in man, who I know is fallible, who has consistently let me down already through my 20 years of tender living, and place my trust in that. And you know what? That just didn't feel good to me. And my discernment led me to the correct path, because now, 27 years later, look at what's coming out about the childhood vaccine schedule.
Yep.
Because I chose to honor my truth and knowing that that truth and knowing is correct, and that I'm not going to be swayed by public opinion. I'm not going to be swayed by authority figures that tell me I can or can't do something with my child. I can and I will. So that's kind of where that went. So I had to fight that societal program by myself for 27 years. And now I'm feeling rather vindicated.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of I told you so's right now. There's a lot of back patting, and there should be.
There really is. And you know what's bad is that, you know, fear is what controls us to the point where we can't take accountability also, right? Because that's part of the program that you inherit when you're a kid. So because that childhood program is running your adult life, that fear kicks in because you're still operating in survival mode. You have no idea that you're operating in survival mode. And so everything that you're viewing from your perception is based on survival. So you can't even make a conscious decision in that moment, because even though the thoughts going through your head right now are saying that what you're seeing is actually happening, it's really not, because everything about your nervous system is reacting from your child's perspective. And until you know what that story is that you are experiencing, you can't even look out into your reality right now and say that you know anything about what's going on, because you have no idea who you are. And everything outside going on in the world is only a reflection of who you are internally. That's what I was talking about. All of the darkness coming up right now. It's the collective shadow. And the shadow is created when we refuse to stand in our sovereignty, when we reject ourselves, when we abandon ourselves, and when we neglect ourselves. That's where the shadow creation is made. And the deeper and the darker that we avoid accountability and doing what's right and standing in unconditional love, the underlying directive of safety and home to returning to self, the longer we avoid that, the bigger and the uglier that shadow gets. And so that's why collectively we are watching this evil monster come rising up from the dark that we didn't even know was there. The majority of humanity had no idea the level of darkness that's going on inside of this realm. And most of them still don't. And that's still to be revealed. That's still to come. I mean, we've got some ugly stuff coming up. And if people don't understand how they are being controlled by fear, and they don't know how to control themselves and their avatars, then they're going to be taken for a massive ride very, very shortly.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't help but think of this too. Again, there are endless examples, and I'm certain that anybody listening to this has endless examples because there are endless comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the whole Charlie Kirk thing. Now,
Yeah.
again, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I mean, he's alive. That didn't happen.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good that we're on the same wavelength. It's beyond obvious that it didn't happen for a
Right.
variety of reasons. And again, I would encourage anybody to go back and listen to the previous episodes when you've been on. It could have even been the last time you were on when I played the audio, or I may have done it in a separate episode. But there's certainly, of course, the Substack article where I played your audio from that meeting where you were inside of that room with the select medical people. Your emotional reaction to them doing what they were doing to you was not sole emotion. It wasn't the amygdala part of your brain firing, making you upset. It was quite the opposite, because of course that's the smallest part of the brain, and it, as I've said on Substack and here on the show, is it bypasses the frontal cortex, which is responsible for logic, reasoning, and consciousness.
Right.
What was happening with you in that moment was both. Both were firing at the exact same time because you knew more than they did.
Yeah.
And you were becoming emotional, and you were seeing their lack of emotion, which was alarming, to say the least.
Yes, it was.
Because, again, like you said, you have one or two NPCs or three in the room and then another one on the phone, and it's almost like, again, a video game where one after the other is coming up to you and then they're surrounding you and they're trying to get you to believe something that you know for certain is not true.
Right.
Just like, again, the Charlie Kirk nonsense. It blew up. And then there were a wide range of emotions and very little thinking going on.
Right. Well, I mean, think about that. It was just like 9/11 too.
Right.
Everybody's focus of attention was on that horrible, awful, fear-controlling shot right out on display. And if they can censor and remove people instantaneously from platforms all around the world that quick, they could have removed that if they wanted to. No, it needed to be displayed in order to control through fear. And yes, you're right, Sean. What I was going through in that meeting, I was feeling all ranges of emotion. I was feeling divine, righteous anger for them attempting to manipulate me to my face. I was feeling like I was staring down evil because of their malicious intent to harm me and other people through their policy that violates their own human rights policy. You know, like it was staring all of that in the face and knowing that I had to control myself enough to be able to coherently think, critically think, provide the information that I did without losing control of my faculties. And what they didn't understand is that I had to learn to do that every single day of my life. I had to learn to think like that. So that may have been a trauma response in my physical form, but it became a very, very handy skill when needed in that kind of opposition.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. And then, of course, you know, the business of watching other individuals around you and other coworkers, you know, sympathize with you, but also not move and not
move.
right.
Yes.
And not change. I mean, they're looking at you with shackles around their ankles, but with an emotional human response, perhaps in their face, in seeing the way that you were upset and what you were trying to do for other people. But then they're saying, well, you know, we sympathize with you, however. And then, of course, they just remain.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like those are the ones that you know have some level of consciousness inside of them, but like you said, they are chained. They are literally chained inside of the programming of their mind, where they feel like they have to comply in order to be accepted, because again, that's part of the conditioned love program. Because if you don't comply, you are outcast. If you don't comply, you are shut down, debanked, deplatformed, everything. You are yeeted basically from society. Like you can't exist without that.
Right.
And that's the way that it's all designed. Because if you go really deep, okay, so we're talking about the macrocosm and the microcosm, but if you go really deep enough into it, you're really, because everything out there is a reflection of what's going on inside. And if every person is a fractionated piece of God in itself, right? If consciousness is source itself, God itself, then God is the only one that exists, which means that you don't exist, I don't exist, and neither do the other NPCs, and neither do the other billions of other fragmented pieces of consciousness, because ultimately we exist into one. So it's really about identifying that other people are you, still treating them with compassion and kindness and love, regardless of how much they trigger you, because that trigger is designed to make you go in. It's designed to make you identify where yourself is not acting in accordance with God, right? Because, I mean, it's what, 365 days or 365 times do not fear is mentioned in the Bible. So if it's mentioned every single day, and we are allowing fear to control our minds every single day, and we're allowing that fear to dictate the behavior that we exist and show other people in our reality, and they are reflecting the truth of who we really are, that means everything we see outside of ourselves is us. So if you're seeing racism, you're racist. If you're seeing murder and death and destruction, that means there's a part of your psyche that can identify with being that, and you're refusing to acknowledge it. And if you're seeing all kinds of rape and molestation, you've probably more than likely dealt with that at some point in time in your life, and you don't want to manage that. It's too painful for you to dig into that memory to face that. Right? It's all what this world is showing us. It's all about self, because self is the only one that exists, because self is God, experiencing life individually through everybody's distorted perception to force them back into the state of unconditional love. You're choosing to choose love no matter what the containment fear or containment zone of fear has brought upon you. You are choosing it. You're existing in it in a state of death, in a state of unconditional or unconscious awareness, until you become aware of the fact that you're inside of this avatar experiencing life in order to evolve your soul and realizing the truth of who and what you really are without the conditioning.
Right. It's about reaching a particular state where you aren't being manipulated.
Correct.
Certainly,
you're able to completely control yourself, because you're no longer attached to the reality of what is, because you know that it's only showing you aspects of self. And if you are able to sit with yourself and see all of those versions of you, then guess what? You can't be manipulated in. You can't be controlled anymore through fear, because you've already looked fear in the face. You've already looked at every one of your deepest fears, your deepest wounds, your deepest acts of betrayal towards other people. You've held yourself responsible, and you've taken accountability for it. That's the only thing that you can do. But because we are all so conditioned to believe that feeling pain is wrong, feeling depressed is okay, feeling anxious all the time is just your way of existing, well, no wonder we don't want to live. No wonder we don't want to do anything nice for anybody, because we are existing in that state of fear constantly every single day.
Right.
So until you break that control, until you can look at all of those ways that you have become in order to survive, look at your shadow, look at your wounds, identify all the ways that it's being used against you, then you can break free. Then you can transcend beyond the programming of this realm. And then you can no longer be trapped inside of all of that pain, all of that torture, all of that mental trauma. And the spiritual warfare is about renewing your mind, identifying your program and completely renewing it.
Well said. Where can people find these modules of yours in this fear program?
Yeah, perfect. They are on my Conscious Health Solutions website. So it's conscioushealthsolutionsllc.com. You go on to the main home screen there, and it's right there on the coming soon. Actually, I think it's available now. Yeah, it's available now. But yeah, I'll take you right there.
Sweet. Send me the link, and I'll put it in the description below the episode here.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. Well, health. Talk about what you're seeing here with your home-to-home visits.
Home to home, lot of cancer, everywhere. Cancer in the kidneys, cancer in the pancreas, lung cancer, cancer in the lymphatic fluid, cancer in the back of the tongue. It's just everywhere. Came out of nowhere. Young people, old people, a lot of people needing transplants, a lot of people on a transplant list, which I'm sure doesn't look good for the transplant industry right now, since, the whole organ donation thing has been exposed.
Right.
Yeah.
What percentage How many patients ballpark are we talking here?
Well, I mean, I see average between 4 to 5 patients a day, and I work 2 weeks out of the month. So you're looking at around between 25 and 40 patients a week. And I don't typically see the same patients. So out of those 40, I would say probably, God, last week when I worked, I probably saw 15 patients that all had cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, kidney cancer.
All jabbed?
Yeah. Well, I stopped asking at this point. I'm just assuming everybody with it is jabbed.
Yeah.
I mean, this is bad. I went to a patient last night. He had an allergic reaction to a medication that he'd been taking for 25 years. All of a sudden had an anaphylactic response to it. And then went today, he got discharged, came home, and then went today and got a flu shot.
Oh
And I
my.
had to send him to the emergency room because I couldn't get a manual blood pressure and I couldn't palpate a pulse and I couldn't get it to come up on the pulse ox. And like if he's already in an immunologic response, the worst thing that you can do is to give a vaccine.
Who made that call?
I'm not really sure. I don't know if it was just a family decision or, because, a lot of people aren't aware of this. They've all been trained to believe that vaccines are good. You're looking at 27 years since I learned this information that people have been completely and totally brainwashed to believe that they are safe and effective, and it, they don't question it. They don't put it together. And I looked at the wife last night and I'm like, well, 1 + 1 is 2. He was already in an immunologic response from the anaphylactic reaction. And now here he is. I mean, that's absolutely correlative to me. I mean, it's just, again, it's a lack of education. People don't understand how their avatar works. And that's the other part about trauma. Like trauma literally, it tracks all the way through your body. Like, and that's kind of what I'm mapping right now is like I finished my functional medicine. I think I told you that. So on my website, I've got functional medicine services. I'm doing my externship via these services and showing how when you've got illness in the body, you can always trace the symptom of that illness back to a specific point in time when something stressful was going on in your life. And that's the way that the body held on to that, right? Like all trauma is just an emotional reaction to an event and the story that the brain creates around it. Right. That's the only thing trauma is. And so once that imprint happens, it then gets stored inside of the body. So I'm offering these services at free of cost, just basically lab service fees only, so that way I can learn and get that hands-on experience that I haven't gotten in the real world yet. But that trauma part of it, because it's stored in the body, it can actually be shown through lab results as well. So as you deal with the trauma and manage the core root portion of the problem, that symptom begins to dissolve on its own. So I don't know, out there in the field though, like people just don't really understand the way that the avatar functions.
Right. And again, explaining it to them would be very, very difficult, if not downright impossible, even when someone that they know and or love is disintegrating right in front of them.
Correct. Oh, that's another story I can tell you. Another cancer patient that I had. I mean, because I'm sharing all of Dr. Mackis's information with these patients. If they're open to other treatment options, I provide them with Dr. Mackis's protocol and I provide them with his research, right? Like if you are not set on chemotherapy and radiation, then this is the information I can provide to you. Look this stuff up. And when you go and have a conversation with your oncologist, go armed, go prepared, go willing to stand up and advocate for your own health, for your life. Because if you don't understand that there's other options out there available for you, then you are willingly handing over the rest of your life savings that you've managed to accumulate, and then you're ultimately handing over your life. Because how many cancer patients that have gotten oncology treatments have actually survived? They might go into remission for a few years, but ultimately it comes right back. Why? Because cancer is a result of cells and trauma trapped inside the body, parasitic in nature, and it stays there until you deal with it. You detox the body and you detox the emotions and you calm the nervous system down and you come from a place of wholeness and healing instead of fracture and distortion.
Yeah. That's heavy. that's that's heavy stuff for a person, again, who's watching somebody disintegrate in front of them and they have no idea what to do. Getting them to make a 180 turn on a belief system and everything that they see on their old television is a tough ask.
I know. And that's part of what my foundation is for. So like I have Conscious Health Solutions and the foundation is the umbrella that holds everything. So my mission is to get this fear program out to everybody so that I can start educating people on what fear does inside of the body and how it traps and controls you and how it damages your health and how you can trace it all the way back to everything. It can all be traced.
And it's not
the
even
foundation.
No, go ahead.
Is to educate. Sorry, the foundation is to educate. It's what's going to be funding everything. So pretty much everything that's coming in through the foundation and through Conscious Health Solutions is all going to educating the public on all of this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it's not that a person has to experience the particular thing in order to advocate for it. They just
Correct.
They don't have to have been molested in order to stand up against child molesters.
Correct.
They just have to know that it exists and that it exists in specified places or at the very least in general society.
Right.
Let me bring up the Jason Mers thing real quick because you know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've been listening to my show or following along with the Substacks, but I mean, he's still on paid administrative leave.
I think I saw that on one of the Talawanda posts.
Okay. Yeah, he hasn't been fired. There's a Title IX that's still going on that I believe is in the decision makers' quote unquote hands thus far. But what's interesting is that throughout this entire process, the brainwashed are the ones who have come out of the woodwork and exposed themselves for their lack of consciousness and have exposed their own hypnosis. You know, I've known Jason Mers for 18 years. I've known Jason Mers for 10 years. I've worked with him for 2 years, and he would never do anything like this.
Yep.
And they all say it.
It's always the ones closest to you that you think are innocent. I mean, most molestation and rapes happen within the family, and that's sad, or a close family friend, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's always somebody that you know, but because we believe the persona that is presented to us in society, we ignore that there are always deeper, darker skeletons in people's closets that we are not aware of. We take their mask that they present as gospel for who they really are. And that's not always the truth. Two things can exist simultaneously. They can present themselves as good, righteous societal members and go to church and thump a Bible and quote scripture while also molesting children behind closed doors. That can absolutely happen. And the fact that there are people that are unwilling to acknowledge both of those truths can exist are absolutely the ones that are showing their own unconscious programming, and they're incapable of seeing how very distorted their perception is. Now, does that make them a full NPC? Maybe. Maybe it will, because the ones that are incapable of acknowledging that the evil exists, because you can't have all light without the dark. There has to be a balance, right? There has to be equal amounts of both in order for existence to even happen in the first place, because light has to have the dark and the dark has to have the light for balance. So if you can't acknowledge that the darkness exists, then you are refusing to acknowledge your own darkness inside of you. And that makes you basic general level NPC without conscious awareness. Like, you're lacking that level of conscious awareness to even acknowledge that that kind of evil can exist.
And that right there is so dangerous.
It is.
Because those people are around not only other adults, but they're around minors.
Yes.
Which means who are they capable of actually protecting?
Correct. Those are the ones that would turn a blind eye to it happening right in front of them because they're not capable of acknowledging that that kind of darkness exists. And it does. It absolutely exists. And when you're a person that has grown up with that kind of trauma, with that kind of evil, that kind of maliciousness, because these people don't just do it because of the thrill of it, they do it because they love it. They get enjoyment, excitement, and pleasure from torturing innocents because they feed off of that. They feed off of that fear that is coming off of the child because it's such pure fear. It is pure and it is intoxicating to that kind of evil. That's the loosh that they feed on. They have to have that. And those beings exist inside of humans. If God can use a human to navigate around inside of this world, to experience itself in human form, then don't think that Satan and demons can't do the same. They absolutely can. And they can inhabit a body and they can make that person do horrible, evil, nasty things to other people without their conscious awareness of it. I mean, anybody that has seen that movie Nefarious, you can see how a demon will literally hijack the consciousness of a human being. And they call it a split personality. No, it's straight demon possession. It's taking control of your internal programming and allowing it to exist inside of you and behave in ways that is damaging and evil and hurtful to other people because you are not in control of you. You are that deeply ensnared by the program itself that you can't even find the light because all you exist in is darkness.
Right. Yeah. Did you hear about the case of, it was, again, very shortly after. It was earlier this summer here in the Talawanda School District with them hiring a sexual deviant who was arrested it was in Montgomery County, your neck of the woods. He was working up there in their court system as a juvenile detention educator. And
I did not see that story.
Okay, let me briefly explain it. The audience here has heard it, and it's on Substack. You're going to want to go back and read these. I'll text you the two stories. But his name is Dr. Joseph Hall, and he's let's see, he'd be 46 years old. He's married to a woman, has 6 kids, and I think 5 still live in the house. But he left. Well, here's what ended up happening. He during the workday in his job at Montgomery County, he was on a gay meetup site called sniffies.com. And he was on this website to basically meet up at a random place and have gay sex with someone. In the middle of the day, he leaves his cell phone at work because he has a tracker on his cell phone that his wife and their kids all have trackers on their cell phones so they can see exactly where they've all been, which seems a bit strange to me. But either way, he leaves his cell phone at work and he gets in his truck and he drives to a location, a house, and he walks in the front door of the house. There are security cameras inside of the home and outside of the home. And he walks in and he's rubbing his own nipples on camera. And he doesn't see anybody in the house. And he turns around and he leaves. And then
that's odd.
And then there's a woman, an older woman, like a grandmother, who is inside of the home, and she walks out of the home to go get a package that's on the front step or whatever. And she sees him, and he turns around and sees her and smiles, and then he walks away. She ends up calling the police, basically like, who is this guy? What's going on? She looks at the security cameras. She sees that this guy walked into their house, rubbed his nipples, turned around, walked out. And then again, she calls the police. They end up interviewing him at his place of work. And he openly admits to the Brookville Police Department that he was there to have a sexual encounter with an adult, so he said. And that having gay sex is one of these things that he's having to deal with because he knows that he shouldn't, but it's how he feels and blah, 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 blah. And then the police officer asks him whether or not he's ever had sex with a minor. And he says no. He says the youngest person I've ever been with is like 30 years old. Well, as it turns out, the kid who's registered to that house that he entered was 17 years old.
Oh, God.
They subpoenaed the kid's cell phone, and they found that the kid was he was on all kinds of sexually related websites on a constant basis. But they couldn't prove that Hall was there to actually have sex with a 17-year-old boy. Hall even said something to the police officer about being possibly set up. But I talked with a police officer myself who did the investigation, and he openly said, I think he was there to have sex with a minor because a minor lived there. He said, and I think he's had sex with minors before, but I can't prove it, which is why he's not in jail and he's walking free. He basically, he ended up pleading to some lesser charge, and then received probation, something along those lines. He ended up leaving the job at Montgomery County about 2 or 3 days after the actual incident itself occurred. And then it wasn't until, I'd say, a week or so later when the police actually interviewed him.
Wow.
He ended up getting a job at Montgomery or in Warren County in their Educational Services Center. And then about a month into that job, he was placed on unpaid administrative leave.
Wonder what he did.
Well, they ended up doing a background check, and they found that this guy had an outstanding, court order kind of thing from what he did in Montgomery County.
Jeez.
But again, there was no indication that, based on the story that he told police, that he was there to have sex with a minor.
Mm-hmm.
So he ended up being on paid administrative leave until February of this year or so, somewhere around there, or unpaid administrative leave. And then he ended up applying for the job of Director of Student Services at Talawanda.
What?
It was him and 2 other people who interviewed for the position, and he ended up getting the position.
Oh, my God.
They hired him without a proper background check. They didn't even do a Google search on the guy. He lied on
my God.
He lied on his application as to what his last place of employment was. He said it was Montgomery County when in fact it was Warren County. He hadn't worked for an entire year based on his false application that he provided, and they didn't even think that was a red flag.
Of course not.
And they didn't even ask him any questions. And of course, he didn't disclose any of his legal troubles because he wouldn't.
Right.
So they hire him. About a month passes, and then members of the public got a hold of his name and then the court order that included the plea agreement. Once that information was sent to me, that's when I went down every flippin' rabbit hole, and I acquired every piece of documentation regarding this guy, from the full-blown police report with Brookville PD and both of his counties of employment. And he was lying to everybody. So Talawanda ended up eventually cutting him loose. But what he admitted, and I found this out through an open records request, is what he ended up admitting to Talawanda was that he was in that house in Montgomery County to buy lawn furniture off of Facebook Marketplace from a 17-year-old boy.
So the story's changed now.
Well, correct, and it's gotten more true. That he was actually there to meet up with a 17-year-old. Because that's who lived there. So,
Talawanda.
Yeah. So I sent all that information to the police officer in Brookville because he was like, I want this guy off the streets. And I said, well, let me do a little digging and I'll see what I can find. Less than a month later, I mean, it was like 2 weeks later, I was like, here you go. Here's him lying to Talawanda, and he's openly admitting that he was there to meet a 17-year-old. And you've got him on camera rubbing his nipples and using a gay sex website to meet up with somebody anonymously. I said, that's solicitation to have sex with a minor. If not, not for money, but certainly,
right.
An illegal exchange of goods, so to speak. Right. And, yeah. So now his LinkedIn page is locked, and I haven't heard anything since.
You go, Sean.
Well, it was pretty damn cool getting
Hell yeah.
getting a pedo out of here. But then you had to watch again. Talawanda in a board meeting panic completely. And they did. They all panicked. Only Don King was the one who said, "Look, you can't hire anybody without a proper background check." And you can't.
That's law, isn't it?
Well,
They're
of course.
around kids.
And you can't just rely on a BCI or an FBI background check. BCI being, of course, state and local, and then FBI being federal. But you can't just rely on those two as the method of a background check. You have to use Google or multiple search engines to look up a person's name to basically do what I call a character background check.
Right.
Because again, you don't know who you're hiring. And they rushed his
7 people.
That's right. They rushed him so fast. And their justification was, well, we don't want to pass off the responsibility to other employees because it's a really important position in XYZ. This guy was going to make over $114,000 in this school district.
Oh my gosh.
He was going to make he was going to make whatever that is, $40,000 less than the superintendent.
So it's easier to put the kids in harm's way than it is to leave a position open.
Correct. Of course, they would never say that.
Well, no.
Right.
That's what the implication is.
Right. They called hiring him and him slipping through the cracks, so to speak. They called it an outlier.
And how many outliers do we have now in Talawanda?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that means that it's no longer a circumstance or an event. This is now like pattern wide.
Correct.
In the school system, in the district. This is like infection.
Yes.
It's rot.
Yep. We hired him because monkeys were flying that day and we were distracted. It's like, okay, got it.
Our bad.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They're absolutely nuts.
Yeah, that whole town needs like gutted.
They do. It needs a full blown cleansing. But again, it speaks right back to what you were saying from the top, is that this is a state of consciousness that is so absent when it comes to even grasping reality, that when they get caught, instead of saying we are 100% sorry, there's more that we can do, we fucked up. Instead of saying that, they go, well, it wasn't our fault.
The cover-up is always worse than the crime.
Of course. Yeah. We rely on the AG's office to do the state background checks and blah, blah, blah. And then it was found out that Talawanda actually has their own background check system involving a digital fingerprint that literally responds within 48 hours. And they spent $6,000 plus on that system, and they don't even use it.
Well, so I mean, of course, it's about covering up their fault so that way they're not open to lawsuit. Because if people sue them for putting their children in harm's way, I mean, that's child endangerment. Yeah. They intentionally failed to do the required steps by law to ensure child safety, and they tried to cover it up.
Yep.
Like, I mean, and I think that it speaks to, again, if that's happening on the local level, I mean, that's just the microcosm of the macrocosm. I mean, that shit is happening everywhere.
Yeah. But they don't, again, these people don't want to believe that this is happening in this little area.
Because it's so quaint and pretty.
Well, I don't know about that either.
It's like a damn snow globe, you know?
Yep.
You exist inside of this ball of hive mentality and you can't escape.
It's nuts. And they got caught again with having all these gay books in the libraries and in the classrooms recently. I mean, all of this has been coming out just within since April, May.
Well, I can't imagine Talawanda's getting any federal funding, are they?
They're going to lose it. They're going to lose it when I'm done with them. But yeah. Yeah. It's incredible.
That's now a law, right? It's law now, executive order.
Yes, and they don't know that, or they don't care. They're just flat out defying it. I mean, all the DEI stuff, All they did was change the wording. Now it's respect, inclusion, and something else.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But again, all these school districts are doing it everywhere. But again, like you said at the top, this is about their fear of having something wrong. And instead of course correcting and just following the law, they double down on their unknowing.
Yeah.
And then they try to justify that some way.
It's almost like they get a spotlight turned on and they're like rushing to kind of cover up the light and all the rays that are rushing in.
Yeah. And it's like, we can still see your shadows. We know you're still there. Yeah. Right? You're not fooling anybody.
Right.
It's amazing.
And what's interesting is that, the majority of all of this it seems like it's elevated information, but it's really not. It's just common sense. It's common courtesy. It's understanding that human nature doesn't have to be this way. We choose it, right? We choose it every single day. So we can choose to remain unconscious, or we can choose to bring awareness into everything that we do. But because we are so quick to fall back asleep and get sucked into all the distractions, it's hard. It's hard to stay awake and aware, because those distractions are powerful.
Yeah, it's incredible. Again, these individuals speaking or running for school board, for example, the two individuals who are currently on the board. I mean, all they're doing too is walking around town talking in echo chambers.
Mm-hmm.
All they're doing is having meetings with 20 Miami students or 20 other community members who know that they're having the meeting, which means it's just their supporters showing up, listening to them. And it's like, you're not talking to people in an effort to actually convince them that what you're doing is right. They're already voting for you.
But the unfortunate thing is the people of Oxford clearly don't care enough to get involved.
Well, this is where I think a tide has shifted here, and I think that even the bad guys can feel it. In the last board meeting, there were two mothers who showed up, and they had never spoken at a board meeting before, and they were yelling the name Jesus Christ and damn these gay books and the whole thing, and they were reading from the gay books, and they were pissed.
Oh, wow.
And again, that right there is the Great Awakening. It'll bypass authority, land right in the lap of an individual who knows the difference between right and wrong, and pull them out of their chair and push them out into society to interact with these NPCs. And then that panics the NPCs because they go, oh, well, we've never seen this person before. What are we to do?
Right.
And then again, instead of course correcting, they double down.
Yep. It's like the glitch grabs them and program amplifies its source code. And
that's right. Yep. 100%. It's wild. Yep. But it'll be interesting to see what happens regarding the election here in a couple of weeks. But I hope that there's enough pissed off people to say, look, this has to change. The school district has to be doged because you have to be able to see the amount of money that they've been stealing and wasting. And it's a copious amount of money. And there's endless people in the district who would love to have that money in their pockets, but the district steals it. So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Let me ask you about your lawsuit. How's that shaped out? I remember you texted a while back, and the angle that you said you were taking had to do then with the workplace retaliation or whistleblower status.
Yeah. So we are still working on putting that new direction in play. We're gathering up all of my evidence because they still haven't seen all of my evidence. They have no idea what I've got.
Right.
And now that we know their play, now that we know, their reasoning, they can't change their reasoning now. So, yeah. So as soon as I get my experts on board and all of that, we are good to go.
Good.
Yeah. So that's kind of exciting because it'll be good to put that to rest now that all this other information has come out. It's basically going to be in my favor at this point,
Yeah, seems like it. It seems rather obvious what you were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't looking at them and saying, if I hit everybody with this rubber mallet, it's going to be better than wearing a mask and taking the shots. I mean, you weren't
Right.
you weren't advocating for more pain. It was quite the opposite. And then, of course, they were just saying, "Well, it's our policy to kill
Right.
everybody."
Right.
It's awful.
Ultimately, that's what it all boils down to.
Of course. And again, if you want more evidence, you've got that latest documentary here from Del Bigtree about an inconvenient, what is it, an inconvenient truth, something like that.
I don't think I've seen that either.
Oh, it's not inconvenient truth. Damn it, that's the wrong term. Hang on, just a minute. Inconvenient study. Why am I getting this wrong? I'm getting it wrong. It had to do with the individuals who wrote the studies about the health of the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated.
Oh yeah. I don't think I've seen the whole documentary, but I did see clips of it.
Yeah. Hang on here. I'm close to it. Here we go. Yeah, an inconvenient study. There we go.
Yeah, because wasn't it a doctor had his medical license revoked as soon as he published it or something like that because it was, and then they took the study group and they started removing people until it fit the narrative.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Again, it's another "I told you so" moment. But we've known of.
Yep.
I mean, we've known of that study for a very long time. They just got around to making a documentary about it.
Yeah.
But and then you had, of course, Governor Mike DeWine the other day, and he was on X, and he said, quote, "Today I got my COVID booster shot. I encourage Ohioans to talk with their physician or healthcare provider about getting the shot this fall. COVID-19 vaccines are safe, effective, and critical to protecting you and your loved ones," unquote.
God, can we stop the propaganda already?
Yeah. To which I responded and I just said, "Today you got AIDS again."
I mean, surely the collective has like understood this now, right? That the shot was not safe and effective. Like, did they know that yet?
Well, apparently DeWine has no clue, or he's receiving a fake shot because he already looks half dead anyway. So,
why do him and Fauci look so much alike to me? They sound alike too.
Have they ever been in the same room together? Yeah.
I don't know, but it's very odd. I can't stand the sound of either one of their voices. So.
Agree. Yeah. It's amazing. Well, I'll tell you what. Thanks again for talking here and sharing this information. It's solid stuff. You're 100% right. You know, the state of consciousness is incredible, and the emotional responses that people have when you approach them with something that counters their pre-programmed, so to speak, belief system is overwhelming. I mean, you could give them the solution to all of their problems on a silver platter for free, and they would flip it in front of your face and say, "Get out of here with that."
Absolutely. And I think that, the people that listen to your program and the people that are going to be drawn to even look at the fear program are going to be people that have a certain level of awareness, people that have experienced trauma, people that have been drugged out of their mind the majority of their lives because they're learning or trying to cope. They're going to be the ones that are going to be drawn to this program, the ones that are ready to be set free from this program completely and have sovereignty over their own body, and it starts in the mind because you're never going to be safe or free out there and then feel that way inside. You have to feel that way inside first, and then it's reflected out there. So those are the ones I think that are going to be drawn to this, the people that listen to your show, that see all the different connections everywhere. But, science and spirituality and psychology, it all connects, it all interweaves. And then that trickles down into the health of the body itself, and if we can't understand why and how everything happens the way that it does, then we can't control anything around us. And the majority of us have learned that the only way to control chaos is to try to attempt to control everything. And it's in that attempt to control everything that we damage people the most. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that those that are ready to receive this level of information, will find what they're looking for,
Yep, I agree. Go ahead and give them the website one more time, and then again, I'll link it in the description below when you send it to me.
All right. It is ConsciousHealthSolutionsLLC.com. Should I spell it out? Because it's kind of long.
Go for it.
It's CONSCIOUSHEALTHSOLUTIONS
Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.